I stood frozen at the door, unable to move as my daughter's words hung in the air, thick with cold indifference. She didn't even look at me when she said it, her back turned, the soft hum of the television filling the silence between us. "You're too old to be part of anything now. Stay out of our way." It was as if the air had been sucked out of the room. I had heard her say plenty of hurtful things over the years, but this was different. This was final. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Instead, I just nodded, the faintest smile pulling at my lips. "Of course," I whispered, not trusting myself to say more. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything else. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me break down. So, I just stood there, silent. The door clicked shut behind her, and I slowly sank to the floor. I sat in the silence, staring at the empty space in front of me, and for the first time in years, I allowed myself to feel the weight of her rejection. It wasn't just the words. It was the finality. She wasn't just brushing me aside anymore, she was pushing me out of their lives, like an unwanted relic from the past. It felt like everything we had shared, every birthday, every school play, every moment when I had been the one to wipe away her tears, meant nothing. I had spent so many years letting them take the lead, living in their world, their schedules, their expectations. I had done everything I could to be a good mother, a good grandmother, but with every year, the distance between us grew wider. The late-night phone calls turned into occasional texts, which eventually dwindled to nothing at all. I had tried to fill the void with memories, pictures, and the hope that one day they'd remember the love I had given them. But now, standing in the silence of that empty house, I realized they had already forgotten me. The tears never came. Instead, something shifted deep inside me, something I hadn't felt in a long time. For the first time in years, I wasn't going to just sit back and let this happen. I wasn't going to beg for their love, their attention, or their validation. I had done that too many times before, and it had gotten me nowhere. It was time for a change. I wasn't going to be their afterthought anymore. If they could walk away from me so easily, I could walk away from them too. But not in the way they expected. I took a long breath, wiped my face, and stood up. There was no more time to waste. I knew I couldn't keep letting them make me feel small. They had pushed me to the edge, and now, I had to find a way to take back what was mine. I wasn't going to just fade into the background and wait for them to notice me again. I wasn't going to be the quiet mother who accepted her fate without a fight. It was time to reclaim my life, on my terms. I didn't say anything to anyone. I didn't even mention it to my friends. I kept the anger, the pain, the fire all to myself, deep inside. I knew I had to be smart about this, and I had a plan. A quiet one. I didn't want to confront them directly, not yet. No, this would be a slow burn, a gradual reveal. The best way to make them listen was to make them realize just how wrong they had been. I started small. One night, I sat down at my old desk, the one I hadn't used in years, and I began to write. At first, it was just a letter. A letter to my children, telling them how I felt, how they had made me feel invisible for so long. I told them about the nights I cried myself to sleep, about how it felt to be shut out of their lives, and how their rejection had left me questioning my worth. It felt good to finally say it, even if it was just for me. But as I wrote, the words began to flow more freely, more intensely. I wasn't just writing a letter anymore, I was writing a story. My story. The story of a woman who had been pushed aside, who had given everything for her family and had been repaid with neglect. I started to write about the things I had done for them over the years, the sacrifices, the long nights, the quiet moments of love and support that had gone unnoticed. I wrote about the emotional abuse, the way they had dismissed my feelings, and how it had hurt me more than anything they could ever say. Each word I typed felt like a release. It was painful, but it was freeing. And the more I wrote, the clearer it became that this wasn't just a letter to my children anymore. This was something bigger. This was a way for me to finally stand up for myself in a way they could never ignore. They had made me feel worthless for too long, but now, I was going to make them see who I truly was. I kept writing late into the night, pouring my heart onto the page. It didn't matter if they ever read it. What mattered was that I was finally speaking my truth. I wasn't going to let their rejection define me anymore. I wasn't going to let them push me into the shadows. My words would be my revenge. The more I wrote, the more determined I became. I was going to publish this. I wasn't just going to let it sit in a drawer somewhere. No, this was a story that needed to be shared, a story that would make them sit up and realize just what they had lost. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about all the women who had been made to feel small, who had been cast aside when they were no longer useful, who had been made to feel invisible by the very people they loved. I reached out to a publisher, a small one at first. I wasn't expecting fame or recognition, but I knew this had to be done. The words needed to be heard. They needed to be known. I didn't care if my children never read it. I didn't care if they didn't care. What mattered was that I was finally doing something for myself. I was no longer the woman they had tried to erase. Weeks passed as I waited for a response. And when it came, I was ready. They wanted to publish it. I had done it. The manuscript that had been nothing more than therapy for me, a way to cope with the pain, was now about to be shared with the world. I couldn't help but smile. I had taken control of my own story, and now it was theirs to read. The phone call came late that evening, just as I was finishing up a simple dinner I'd made for myself. The sound of the ringing phone broke the quiet in my home, and for a moment, I hesitated. I had been living in this calm, peaceful solitude for weeks, a life that seemed so foreign to me after years of chaos and emotional neglect. But the phone kept ringing, insistent. I knew who it was before I even looked at the screen. My son. I had been waiting for this moment, even though I wasn't sure I was ready for it. He had always been the one to call, the one who once shared his life with me, and now, he was the one reaching out after everything that had happened. I answered, my heart racing in my chest. Mom, his voice sounded strained, like he was holding back something. We need to talk. I felt a lump form in my throat, but I said nothing. I just waited, the silence stretching between us, as if neither of us knew where to start. You read the book, didn't you? He asked, his voice shaking slightly. I didn't answer right away. I could feel the anger rising in me, the same anger I had felt when he'd first told me I was irrelevant. But I kept it down, the words I had written still fresh in my mind. My memoir. It wasn't just my story anymore, it was theirs too. They had read it, and now they were dealing with the consequences of their actions. But this moment was not about their guilt. This was about me. Yes, I said quietly, my voice steady. I wrote it. And yes, I want you to read it. I want you to understand. There was a pause on the other end, followed by a heavy sigh. I didn't think it would affect you this much. We didn't mean to hurt you, Mom. It was just easier to move on without all of this. Easier for them. That word hit me harder than anything he had said before. Easier. That's all I had been to them. Something to ignore, something to shove aside when it no longer fit into their perfect lives. Is that it? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Is that all you have to say to me? I could hear him stumbling over his words. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm really sorry. Sorry doesn't fix anything. I cut him off, the words spilling out before I could stop them. You think an apology will make up for all those years you ignored me? For all the times you made me feel like I was invisible? Sorry doesn't fix anything, and it's not going to fix this. I paused, letting the silence hang between us like a heavy weight. But I'm here, he said, his voice breaking now. I want to make it right. I leaned back in my chair, looking out the window at the darkening sky. The stars were barely visible through the clouds, a reflection of the way things had been between us. There was a part of me that wanted to believe him, that wanted to hear him apologize and feel the relief of having my son back. But I knew that wasn't the real reason he was calling. I wasn't going to fall for it. Making it right isn't just about saying the words, I said, my voice calm, almost cold. It's about understanding what you did to me. And you haven't done that. Not yet. I could hear his breath hitch. Then what do you want from me? I thought about that for a moment. What did I want? What would actually make this right? The truth was, I wasn't sure. Part of me wanted them to feel the weight of their actions, to understand how their words had cut me. Another part of me wanted to move on from this chapter entirely, to never look back. But instead of saying any of that, I simply said, I want you to understand. I want you to know what it felt like. I want you to feel what it's like to be pushed aside, to be ignored, to be told that you're not needed anymore. And maybe, just maybe, you'll realize how wrong you were. The line went quiet again. I didn't need to hear any more apologies. I didn't need him to beg for forgiveness. What I needed was for him to sit with the truth, to sit with what he had done and understand the depth of the hurt. It wasn't my job to fix this anymore. It was his. "Do you hate me now?" he asked, his voice small, almost childlike. I felt a sharp pang in my chest. No, I didn't hate him. But this wasn't about hatred. It wasn't about blame anymore. This was about taking control of my own life again. This was about standing up for myself in ways I had never done before. "I don't hate you," I said softly. "But you don't get to keep pushing me away and expect me to just come running back when it's convenient for you." The conversation ended with him promising to come over and talk in person, but I knew that this was the reckoning. This was the moment that I would no longer be the silent, invisible mother. This was the moment I would finally stand firm and make my children see me for who I was, not just the woman who had spent years sacrificing everything for them. The next morning, I woke up to a text from my daughter. She had read the book too, and she wanted to talk. I felt a wave of exhaustion wash over me. I had already dealt with my son, and now it was her turn. Part of me wanted to ignore her, to continue living my life without them. But there was something deep inside me, something that told me this wasn't just about me anymore. This was about making sure they understood what they had done. So, I called her back, my fingers trembling slightly as I pressed the call button. "Mom," her voice was cautious, like she wasn't sure how to approach me. I want to say I'm sorry. I didn't realize how much my distance hurt you. I didn't think you'd feel it like this." I could feel the sincerity in her voice, but I didn't respond right away. Instead, I took a deep breath, letting the words settle in my mind. What was I supposed to say to that? What was the right response? "I'm glad you're realizing it now," I said slowly, "but I can't just forget everything. You can't expect me to go back to how things were after all of this. I need time, and so do you. We need to figure out what comes next, but it's not going to be easy." She sighed, sounding like a child for the first time in years. "I know, Mom. I just want to fix it. I'm sorry." For the first time in a long time, I felt something inside me shift. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was something. Something that made me believe that, maybe, just maybe, this conversation could lead to something better. A new chapter, one where I didn't just exist in their world, but where they finally understood what it meant to be part of mine. "I'll think about it," I said, my voice quieter now, almost gentle. "But you've got to understand, this is going to take time. I'm not just going to forgive and forget." She didn't argue. Instead, there was a silence, and then she said, "I'll wait, Mom. I'll wait as long as it takes." As I hung up the phone, I felt the weight of everything I had been carrying for years start to lift, just a little. It wasn't over. It wasn't fixed. But it was a start. And that was enough for me.